Darkness in the city. The episode begins with a shot of a bustling yet eerie city. Despite the busy streets and towering buildings, there's an unsettling feeling in the air, as though something sinister lurks beneath the surface. Omar, the main character, is introduced as a young journalist in his mid-30s. He is passionate about uncovering the truth, even when it puts him in danger. Omar is not your typical reporter. He's the kind who doesn't shy away from digging deep into the darkest corners of society. He's known for his investigative reports that expose corruption and crime, but this new case is different. It's personal. The episode opens with Omar receiving a late-night phone call. It's from a source he hasn't spoken to in years, someone who only reaches out when there's something big going on. The voice on the other end is shaky, and the message is cryptic. People are disappearing. No one's talking about it, but it's happening. Meet me at the old market at midnight. Intrigued but wary, Omar grabs his notebook and heads out into the cold, foggy night. As he walks through the quiet streets, he can't shake the feeling that he's being watched. The camera pans to shadows lurking in dark alleys, building suspense. The viewer can feel that something is off, though Omar remains focused. At the old market, a forgotten part of the city now left to decay, Omar meets his source, an old friend named Hassan. Hassan looks nervous, constantly glancing over his shoulder. He tells Omar about a series of recent disappearances that the authorities are covering up. Each person went missing shortly after visiting a particular location on the outskirts of town, a place no one seems to remember until it's too late. Hassan explains that he tried going to the police, but they brushed him off, claiming the missing people either left town or never existed in the first place. He hands Omar a file filled with photos, dates, and addresses of the missing. All of them seem unrelated, different backgrounds, ages, and professions, but one thing ties them together. They all visited a mysterious building before vanishing. Before Hassan can reveal more, he suddenly freezes, staring into the distance. Omar turns to see what caught his attention, but there's nothing there, just the empty market. Hassan's face turns pale, and he mutters something under his breath. They know we're here. Without another word, Hassan bolts, disappearing into the night, leaving Omar standing alone. Confused but determined, Omar flips through the file and notices an address written on the back of one of the photos. It's the address of the building Hassan mentioned, a place on the outskirts of the city, abandoned for years. The next day, Omar visits Layla, a private investigator and old friend who once worked with him on a previous case. Layla is sharp, tough, and resourceful. She's the kind of person who never backs down from a challenge. Although their friendship has been strained over the years, Omar knows he needs her help to dig deeper into this case. When Omar explains the situation, Layla is skeptical at first, but she can see the seriousness in his eyes. She agrees to help, though she warns him, "We're getting involved in something bigger than we realize. We need to be careful." The episode ends with a haunting shot of the mysterious building, covered in graffiti and shadows, as Omar and Layla prepare to investigate it. The camera zooms in on a broken window, and for a brief moment, a shadowy figure can be seen inside before it fades into the darkness. As the screen fades to black, a message appears. Some doors should never be opened. This detailed episode sets the stage for the larger mystery, while establishing the characters and the eerie atmosphere that will drive the story forward. Episode 2. Searching the past. The second episode begins right where the first one left off, with Omar and Layla standing outside the mysterious abandoned building. It's early morning, and the fog hangs heavy in the air. The building looms over them, a relic of the past covered in rust, grime, and overgrown vines. Broken windows and crumbling walls make it clear that no one has been inside for a long time, or at least, that's what it seems. Layla pulls out a flashlight from her bag, and the two carefully enter through the main entrance, stepping over broken glass and debris. The air inside is thick and stale, and the sound of their footsteps echoes eerily through the empty hallways. As they walk deeper into the building, they notice strange markings on the walls, symbols that neither of them recognize. It feels less like an abandoned building and more like a place where something dark had once happened. They come across an old stairwell leading to the basement. Hesitating for a moment, Omar suggests they start searching upstairs, but Layla insists on going down to the basement first, sensing that's where the real secrets might be hidden. As they descend, the air becomes colder, and the sound of dripping water echoes around them. When they reach the basement, it's pitch dark. Their flashlights reveal a large open room, cluttered with old furniture, broken equipment, and piles of dusty papers scattered across the floor. It looks like a makeshift laboratory that had been hastily abandoned. Layla picks up one of the papers from the floor, brushing off the dust. It's a document dated over 40 years ago, titled Energy Transfer Experiment Number 17. Confused, she flips through more papers, all describing strange scientific experiments that were conducted in this very building. Omar begins photographing the documents while Layla continues digging through the pile. Suddenly, they find a locked metal cabinet tucked away in the corner of the room. With some effort, they manage to pry it open, revealing a stack of old folders, all labeled with the word confidential. Inside, they discover detailed reports of people who had participated in these experiments decades ago. As they flip through the reports, they notice a chilling pattern. Every participant had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, just like the people who have recently gone missing. The deeper they dig, the more they realize that this building was once a secret government facility, used during the 1970s to conduct illegal experiments on unsuspecting civilians. These experiments involved harnessing an unknown form of energy that was believed to have the potential to alter human perception and behavior. But something had gone horribly wrong. Many of the test subjects disappeared, and the experiments were shut down without any public explanation. Omar and Layla are shaken by their discovery. Layla suggests that the recent disappearances might be connected to these old experiments, but Omar isn't convinced. He points out that the experiments were abandoned decades ago. Why would people start disappearing now? Layla agrees it's strange, but before they can theorize further, they hear footsteps coming from upstairs. They quickly turn off their flashlights and hide behind some of the old equipment. The footsteps get louder, and then they hear voices, two men, speaking in low tones. Omar tries to peek around the corner to get a glimpse of who's there, but Layla pulls him back. The men seem to be searching for something, and one of them says, "We need to find it before they do. The boss won't be happy if it falls into the wrong hands." After a tense few moments, the men leave, and the building falls silent once more. Shaken but determined, Omar and Layla decide it's time to leave. They gather the documents they found and carefully make their way out of the basement, ensuring no one notices them. As they exit the building, Omar's phone rings. It's Hassan. His voice is frantic, and he tells Omar that he's been followed since their meeting at the market. Hassan warns them to be careful. There are people who want to keep the past buried. They're willing to do whatever it takes to ensure the truth never comes out. The episode ends with Omar and Layla standing outside the building, the documents in hand. Layla looks at Omar and says, "We've only scratched the surface. Whatever they were doing here, it's not over." Omar nods, a mix of determination and fear in his eyes. The camera slowly zooms out to reveal the full, ominous structure of the abandoned building. In the background, thunder rumbles, signaling that the storm, both literal and metaphorical, is just beginning. As the screen fades to black, another message appears. Some secrets are meant to stay hidden, but for how long? Episode 3. The Truth Revealed. The third episode opens with Omar and Layla back at her office, a small, cluttered space filled with papers, old case files, and a map of the city pinned to the wall. They sit in silence, processing everything they uncovered at the abandoned building. Layla is furiously typing notes into her laptop, trying to piece together the mystery, while Omar flips through the photos and documents they took from the basement. Suddenly, a realization hits Omar. One of the names in the old experiment files matches the name of a recent missing person. He pulls up a photo from Hassan's file of a man who disappeared a few weeks ago. "This is Karim Youssef, right?" Omar says, holding up the image. Layla looks over at him, her eyes widening in recognition. She quickly cross-references the name with the files they recovered from the building. There it is, Karim Youssef, listed as a participant in one of the energy transfer experiments from the 1970s. How is this possible? Layla asks. He couldn't have been part of those experiments. He wasn't even born when they happened. Omar nods in agreement, but there's something nagging at him. He starts theorizing that perhaps these experiments never really stopped. Maybe they continued under the radar, using new test subjects, and the disappearances are the result of the same energy manipulation from the past. Before they can discuss further, Omar's phone buzzes again. It's a message from Hassan. "Meet me tonight at the old power plant. I've found something big." Layla looks skeptical. Hassan's acting strange. "We need to be careful." Omar agrees, but they both know they don't have many options. If Hassan has more information, it could be the key to solving the case. They decide to meet him later that evening. Later that night, Omar and Layla make their way to the old power plant on the outskirts of the city. The sky is dark, clouds swirling ominously above them, and the air feels heavy with tension. The power plant is an enormous, decaying structure that hasn't been operational in years, yet something about it feels unsettlingly alive. There are lights on in one of the windows, and a low hum vibrates through the ground. They enter the building cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. As they explore the dark, industrial corridors, they hear a faint voice coming from one of the lower levels. It's Hassan. They follow the sound down a narrow flight of stairs into a dimly lit basement where they find Hassan, sitting at a table covered in old blueprints and documents. Hassan looks up, his face pale and gaunt. "I found the source," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. He points to one of the blueprints, which shows a hidden section beneath the power plant, a chamber deep underground where the original energy experiments took place. They never stopped. They just moved the operation here. Omar and Layla exchange glances, both of them realizing the gravity of what Hassan is saying. Hassan goes on to explain that the energy they were experimenting with wasn't just a scientific anomaly. It was something far more dangerous, something that had the ability to warp reality and manipulate the human mind. The people who disappeared weren't just taken, they were absorbed by this energy, lost in another dimension of sorts. "They call it the pulse," Hassan says, his eyes wild. "It's like a living thing, feeding on fear and negative emotions. Once it touches you, it's only a matter of time before you're gone." Omar and Layla listen in stunned silence. Hassan pulls out an old cassette recorder, placing it on the table. "I recorded something," he says. "It was from one of the early experiments. You need to hear this." He presses play, and the room fills with the crackling sound of an old recording. A voice, trembling with fear, begins to speak. "Experiment 12. The subject is responding to the energy source. It's starting to take hold. We can't control it. The readings are off the charts. The subject is changing. No, we have to stop." The recording cuts off abruptly, followed by a chilling silence. Before they can fully process what they've heard, they hear footsteps echoing from the hallway. Omar quickly turns off the recorder, and the three of them scramble to hide behind one of the large industrial machines. The footsteps grow louder, and soon, two figures appear in the doorway, dressed in black, their faces obscured. They seem to be searching for something, talking in hushed voices. "Did you check the basement?" one of them asks the other. "Not yet, but we can't let anyone find out what's down there. It's too late to turn back now." Omar, Layla, and Hassan remain hidden, their hearts pounding as the two figures move through the room, scanning the area. Just as it seems they might be discovered, a loud noise echoes from upstairs, causing the intruders to leave in a hurry. Once the coast is clear, Omar, Layla, and Hassan emerge from their hiding place. Hassan is shaking, clearly terrified. "We need to leave, now," he whispers, gathering the documents quickly. Omar agrees, but Layla hesitates. "What about the chamber?" she asks. "If what Hassan says is true, we need to see it for ourselves." Hassan looks at her like she's lost her mind. "You don't understand," he says, panic rising in his voice. "That place, it's alive. It's not just a chamber. It's the heart of the pulse." Despite his warnings, Omar and Layla are determined. They decide to go down into the underground chamber to uncover the full truth, even if it means putting themselves in extreme danger. The episode ends with the three of them standing at the entrance to an old, rusted elevator shaft that leads deep below the power plant. As they step inside the elevator, the camera zooms in on Omar's face, filled with a mixture of fear and resolve. The lights flicker, and the episode ends with the sound of the elevator descending into the unknown. The screen fades to black with the message: "Once you've seen the truth, there's no turning back." This episode reveals crucial information about the experiments and introduces the concept of the pulse, raising the stakes and building suspense as Omar, Layla, and Hassan prepare for a final confrontation with the unknown forces controlling the city. Episode 4. The final showdown. The final episode begins with the old, rusted elevator creaking as it descends deep into the underground chamber beneath the power plant. Omar, Layla, and Hassan stand in tense silence, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. The flickering light overhead adds to the claustrophobic feeling as the elevator groans, slowly making its way down. Omar grips his flashlight tightly, and Layla keeps her hand close to her bag, where she has a small weapon, just in case. As the elevator reaches the bottom, the doors slide open with a screech, revealing a long, dimly lit corridor. The air down here is colder, and there's a low humming sound reverberating through the walls. Omar steps forward cautiously, with Layla and Hassan close behind. The corridor leads to a large, circular metal door, sealed shut and covered in strange symbols similar to those they found in the abandoned building. "That must be it," Hassan whispers, pointing to the door. "That's where the pulse is contained." Layla examines the door for a moment before noticing a control panel on the side. She presses a few buttons, and with a loud, metallic clink, the door begins to open. The sound echoes through the chamber, and as the door slowly swings open, they are greeted by a blast of cold air that chills them to the bone. Inside is a vast, cavernous room. At its center stands a massive machine, rusted, ancient, and pulsating with an eerie, faint glow. Tubes and wires run from the machine into the walls, connecting it to the entire facility. The hum grows louder as they approach, and the ground seems to tremble beneath their feet. "This is it," Hassan says, his voice shaking. "This is where they conducted the experiments, and where the energy was harnessed." Omar and Layla stand in awe, but there's something deeply unsettling about the room. The air feels heavy, as if the energy itself is alive, watching them. Omar notices a series of monitors on the far side of the room, and he walks over to investigate. The screens flicker to life, showing old footage from the experiments, people strapped to machines, their faces contorted in agony as the energy took hold of them. The footage is grainy and distorted, but it's clear that these people were subjected to unimaginable suffering. Layla joins Omar at the monitors. "They knew it was dangerous," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "And they kept going anyway." Just as they begin to grasp the full horror of what happened here, A loud clanging sound echoes through the chamber. Omar and Layla turn to see Hassan backing away from the machine, his eyes wide with terror. "It's waking up," he stammers. "We need to shut it down before it's too late." Suddenly, the machine's glow intensifies, and the hum becomes deafening. The entire room begins to shake violently, and the energy emanating from the machine starts to ripple through the air, distorting reality around them. Shadows dance on the walls, and strange, ghostly images flicker in and out of existence. Omar rushes to the control panel near the machine, desperately trying to figure out how to shut it down. Layla stands guard, watching for any signs of danger. Hassan, overwhelmed by fear, pleads with them to leave. "We're not going to make it out of here alive," he shouts. Omar ignores him, his fingers flying over the controls. "There has to be a way to stop this," he mutters. Suddenly, he finds a switch labeled "Emergency Shutdown." Without hesitation, he flips the switch, but nothing happens. The machine roars louder, and the energy begins to spiral out of control. "It's not working," Omar yells. "There has to be another way." Layla's eyes dart around the room, scanning for anything that might help. She notices a small compartment at the base of the machine, marked with the same strange symbols they've been seeing throughout the facility. "There," she shouts, pointing to it. "That might be the core." Omar and Layla rush over and pry open the compartment, revealing a glowing crystal-like object pulsing with energy. "This is it," Omar says. "This is what's feeding the machine." "We have to destroy it," Layla replies, her voice firm. Omar hesitates for a moment, knowing that tampering with the core could have unpredictable and catastrophic consequences. But they don't have a choice. The machine is becoming more unstable by the second, and if they don't act fast, the entire facility and possibly the city could be consumed by the pulse. Using a nearby metal rod, Omar smashes the crystal with all his strength. The moment the crystal shatters, a blinding flash of light fills the room, and the machine emits a deafening, high-pitched screech. The energy begins to collapse in on itself, and for a moment, time seems to stop. Then, with a massive shockwave, the machine implodes, sending Omar, Layla, and Hassan flying across the room. When the dust settles, the room is silent. The machine is destroyed, and the pulsating energy is gone. Omar and Layla slowly pick themselves up, dazed but alive. Hassan, lying on the ground, looks up at them with disbelief. "You did it," he whispers. "It's over." But as Omar and Layla help Hassan to his feet, the ground begins to tremble again, this time more violently than before. "We need to get out of here," Omar says, his voice filled with urgency. The entire facility is collapsing. The three of them sprint for the elevator, the walls shaking and debris falling around them. They barely make it inside the elevator as the ceiling caves in. The ride up feels agonizingly slow, but finally, they reach the surface and escape the collapsing power plant just in time. Outside, the sky is clear, and the eerie hum's gone. The city, still distant, seems untouched by the chaos beneath the ground. Omar and Layla stand in silence, catching their breath as they watch the power plant sink into the earth. Hassan turns to them, his face pale but relieved. "You saved us," he says. "You stopped it." Omar, still processing everything, looks at the horizon. "We stopped this," he replies, "but there's more out there, more secrets, more shadows." Layla nods, knowing that their journey for the truth is far from over. The screen fades to black, with one final message. Some battles are won, but the war for truth never ends. This final episode delivers the thrilling climax, with Omar and Layla destroying the machine and narrowly escaping with their lives. The mystery is resolved, but the story ends on a note of suspense, hinting that there may be more secrets lurking in the shadows, setting the stage for potential future adventures. Emma was an ordinary woman living a quiet life in her small town. She worked as a librarian, enjoyed baking on weekends, and spent her evenings reading by the window. Though her life was simple, Emma had always believed in the power of kindness. She often volunteered at the local food bank and donated to causes when she could. But one ordinary afternoon, a single act of generosity would set off a chain of events she could never have imagined. It started with a cup of coffee. Emma was at her favorite cafe, enjoying her usual latte, when she noticed a man sitting by the window. He looked tired, his clothes were worn, and he clutched a weathered notebook in his hands. He seemed lost in thought, occasionally scribbling something down. Emma felt a nudge of empathy. She approached the counter and asked the barista to add a sandwich and another coffee to her bill, instructing them to deliver it anonymously to the man. The man looked surprised when the barista brought over the food. He glanced around the cafe, his eyes briefly meeting Emma's, but she quickly turned back to her book, pretending not to notice. He nodded to himself, took a deep breath, and began eating. When he finished, he wrote something in his notebook. He folded the page and handed it to the barista. "Give this to whoever bought my lunch," he said. The note read, "Thank you for your kindness. You reminded me that there's good in the world. I've been struggling to finish a project I care deeply about, and today you gave me hope." Emma smiled at the message, but she didn't think much more of it. She left the cafe and returned to her routine, not knowing that her small gesture had sparked something far greater. The man, whose name was Noah, was a struggling writer. He had been working on a children's book for years, but had lost confidence in himself. That day at the cafe, Emma's kindness reignited his belief in his work. Inspired, he went home and poured himself into finishing the book. Months later, the story was published, and it quickly gained popularity for its heartfelt message about kindness and the power of small actions. The book reached a teacher named Sarah, who decided to use it in her classroom to teach her students about empathy and giving back. One of her students, a boy named Liam, was particularly moved by the story. Liam, who had always been quiet and shy, decided to organize a toy drive for children in need. With the help of his classmates, the drive collected hundreds of toys. The drive brought joy to many families during the holiday season. Among the families who received toys was a single mother named Anna and her daughter Mia. Anna, overwhelmed by the generosity, decided she wanted to give back as well. Though she had little to spare, she volunteered at a local shelter where her warmth and dedication made a lasting impact. Her efforts caught the attention of a community leader who helped her secure a job at a nonprofit organization. This stability allowed Anna to pursue her dream of going back to school. Meanwhile, Emma had no idea about the ripple effect her small act had created. One day, while browsing in her library, she noticed a children's book on display. The cover looked familiar, and when she picked it up, she saw Noah's name. She read the dedication. "To the stranger who reminded me of the good in the world. This book exists because of you." Emma was stunned. She reached out to Noah through his publisher, and they reconnected. Noah told her about how her gesture had changed his life, and how the story of his book had inspired so many others. Emma was humbled and deeply moved. In the following years, Emma and Noah teamed up to promote acts of kindness. They organized community events, giving talks about how generosity, no matter how small, can make a difference. Together, they watched as the seeds of kindness continued to grow.
Maya was no stranger to pain. Life had thrown challenge after challenge her way, and she often found herself wondering how much more she could endure. Yet, amidst the storm of hardships, there was a fire within her, a quiet, unyielding determination to rise above it all. Maya's life changed drastically when she was just 12 years old. Her family, once comfortable, fell into financial ruin after her father's business collapsed. They lost their home, and Maya's parents worked multiple jobs just to make ends meet. The once vibrant girl found herself retreating into silence, feeling the weight of her family's struggles on her young shoulders. Despite her hardships, Maya excelled academically. School became her sanctuary, a place where she could momentarily forget her troubles. But her determination to succeed was met with another blow when, at 16, she was diagnosed with a chronic illness that caused debilitating pain and fatigue. The condition made it difficult for her to focus, and there were days when getting out of bed felt impossible. Her dreams of attending a top university and building a better future for her family seemed to be slipping away. Maya's lowest point came during her final year of high school. She had to withdraw from extracurricular activities and even missed weeks of classes due to hospital visits. Her peers, who didn't understand her condition, distanced themselves, and she felt more alone than ever. One evening, while sitting by her bedroom window, she looked out at the city lights and asked herself a question. Is this all there is? Or can I find a way to turn this pain into something meaningful? That night, Maya made a promise to herself. She decided that while she couldn't control her circumstances, she could control how she responded to them. She began researching her illness, learning about how to manage her symptoms through diet, exercise, and stress reduction. It wasn't easy, but over time, she developed a routine that allowed her to regain some control over her life. Maya also found solace in writing. She started a blog where she documented her journey, her struggles, her triumphs, and everything in between. Her words resonated with others facing similar challenges, and her blog quickly gained a following. People from around the world reached out to her, sharing their stories and thanking her for giving them hope. Encouraged by the impact of her writing, Maya set her sights on college once again. She applied to several universities, including her dream school, and wrote her admissions essay about resilience and the lessons she had learned through her illness. To her amazement, she was accepted with a scholarship. At university, Maya thrived. She studied psychology, driven by a desire to understand the human mind and help others navigate their own challenges. Her blog continued to grow, and she began giving talks about resilience at local events. Each time she stood on stage, she felt the weight of her pain transforming into strength. By the time Maya graduated, she had built a community of thousands who found inspiration in her story. She launched a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting young people with chronic illnesses, providing resources, mentorship, and a platform for them to share their voices. Her work earned her recognition and opportunities to collaborate with global health organizations. Years later, Maya stood in front of a packed auditorium, delivering the keynote speech at an international conference on resilience. She spoke about how pain, though difficult, could be a catalyst for growth and change. As she looked out at the audience, she felt a deep sense of gratitude, not for the pain itself, but for what it had taught her. Maya's story became a beacon of hope for those struggling in darkness. She often said, "Pain is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you get to decide how to rewrite your narrative." Strength isn't born from ease, it's forged in the fire of adversity.
Liam had always been fascinated by the ocean. Growing up in a coastal town, he spent hours watching the waves crash against the shore, imagining the mysteries hidden beneath. As a child, he dreamed of becoming a marine biologist, someone who could explore the depths of the sea and uncover its secrets. But life, as it often does, had different plans for him. Liam's family owned a small fishing business, and from a young age, he was expected to help out. While he loved the ocean, his responsibilities on the boat kept him from pursuing his academic dreams. His father, a pragmatic man, often told him, "The ocean feeds us, Liam. It's not a place for dreams, it's a place for survival." Though Liam respected his father's perspective, he couldn't help but feel that the ocean was calling him to something greater. After finishing high school, Liam had to forego college to work full-time with his family. He spent years fishing, enduring harsh weather and long hours. Despite the grueling work, he always found moments to marvel at the beauty of the sea. He kept a notebook where he sketched marine creatures they caught and jotted down observations. It was his way of staying connected to his dream. One day, while fishing far from the shore, Liam's boat got caught in a severe storm. The crew managed to survive, but the boat sustained significant damage. While waiting for repairs, Liam found himself with free time for the first time in years. On a whim, he visited the local library and discovered a marine biology workshop. Though nervous about being surrounded by professionals, he decided to attend. The workshop reignited Liam's passion. He met Dr. Harper, a renowned marine biologist leading the event, who was intrigued by Liam's knowledge of the ocean and his sketches. Dr. Harper encouraged him to pursue marine biology, but Liam hesitated. How could he leave his family's business? How could he afford school after all these years? Dr. Harper saw Liam's potential and offered him a position as a field assistant. The work was part-time, allowing Liam to continue helping his family while earning experience and a modest income. Though hesitant at first, Liam accepted the offer, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Balancing both worlds was not easy. Liam would work on the boat during the day and spend his evenings assisting with research. He learned to identify marine species, conduct surveys, and even analyze water samples. His father, initially skeptical, began to see the value of Liam's work. When he shared findings that helped improve their fishing practices, his father started to appreciate his efforts. Over time, Liam's efforts caught the attention of others in the field. Dr. Harper encouraged him to apply for a scholarship. With her recommendation and a portfolio of his sketches and research, Liam was awarded the scholarship. Saying goodbye to his family and the fishing boat was bittersweet, but his father's parting words stayed with him: "Follow the ocean, Liam." At university, Liam thrived. His hands-on experience gave him an edge, and his passion for marine life set him apart. He became known for his innovative approach to research, blending his practical knowledge as a fisherman with academic insights. His final project focused on sustainable fishing practices, which earned him recognition and paved the way for a position at a prominent marine research institute. Years later, Liam returned to his hometown, not as a fisherman but as a marine biologist. He led a conservation initiative, working with local fishermen, including his own family, to implement sustainable practices that benefited both the environment and their livelihoods. Standing on the shore one evening, Liam felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Aidan had always been afraid of heights. As a child, he avoided treehouses, roller coasters, and even looking over balconies. This fear followed him into adulthood, quietly shaping his decisions. He avoided certain jobs, turned down adventurous vacations, and often found himself making excuses to hide his phobia. The turning point came when his closest friend, Lily, invited him to her destination wedding in a small, picturesque village nestled in the mountains. Attending would require Aidan to face one of his greatest fears: crossing a suspension bridge over a deep canyon. When Aidan received the invitation, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. He considered declining, but Lily was more than a friend, she was family to him. He couldn't let her down. With shaking hands, he RSVP'd yes, telling himself he'd figure it out when the time came. As the wedding approached, Aidan's anxiety grew. The bridge haunted his thoughts, appearing in his dreams as an endless, swaying expanse. He shared his fears with Lily, who encouraged him gently. "You don't have to cross it alone," she said. "But I think you're stronger than you realize." The day of the wedding arrived, and Aidan found himself standing at the edge of the bridge. The view was breathtaking: lush green mountains, a river flowing far below, but all he could focus on was the sheer drop. His legs felt like lead, and his heart pounded in his chest. A group of wedding guests approached, offering words of encouragement. "You can do it, Aidan," one of them said. "Take it one step at a time." Aidan nodded, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Then Lily's fiancé, Mark, stepped forward and offered his hand. "Let's cross together," he said. With Mark by his side, Aidan took a shaky step onto the bridge. The wooden planks creaked beneath his weight, and the rope swayed gently in the wind. His breath quickened, but Mark's steady voice kept him grounded. Look at me, not down. Focus on where you're going, not what's beneath you. Step by step, Aiden moved forward. At first, his fear was all-consuming, but as he focused on Mark's guidance, a surprising thing happened. He started to believe he could make it. The fear didn't vanish, but it became manageable, a challenge he could face instead of an insurmountable wall. Halfway across the bridge, Aiden paused to catch his breath. For the first time, he allowed himself to look around. The view that had once terrified him now felt awe-inspiring. The fear was still there, but it was accompanied by something else, a sense of accomplishment. He was doing it. When they reached the other side, Aiden felt a surge of pride and relief. The wedding was beautiful, but the real celebration for him was internal. For the first time in years, he had faced a fear that had controlled so much of his life. It wasn't just about the bridge, it was about reclaiming his courage. Inspired by this moment, Aiden decided to challenge himself further. Over the next few months, he signed up for a climbing course, joined a hiking group, and began seeking out small opportunities to confront his fears. Each step built his confidence, and with each success, the grip of his phobia loosened. A year after the wedding, Aiden stood at the base of a rock climbing wall. It was part of a team-building event for his new job, one he'd taken specifically because it required travel and occasional outdoor adventures. As he climbed higher, he felt the familiar twinge of fear but also the steady beat of courage.
Ethan was an ordinary man with an extraordinary dream. He had always been fascinated by the night sky, spending countless hours as a child staring at the stars, wondering about the vastness of the universe. His passion for space never faded as he grew older, and he aspired to become an astrophysicist. But life had other plans for Ethan. Growing up in a small town with limited resources, Ethan's family couldn't afford to send him to a prestigious university. Instead, he attended a local college, juggling multiple part-time jobs to pay for his education. Despite his challenges, he excelled academically. He graduated with honors, but struggled to find opportunities in his field due to his lack of connections and resources. Ethan applied to numerous research programs and internships, only to face rejection after rejection. The rejections were disheartening, but Ethan refused to let them define him. He spent his nights teaching himself advanced mathematics and astrophysics, using free online courses and textbooks he borrowed from the local library. His room became his personal observatory, filled with charts, equations, and a second-hand telescope he had saved up for. One evening, while scrolling through a science forum, Ethan stumbled upon a post about an international competition for aspiring scientists. The competition challenged participants to design an innovative project that could contribute to space exploration. Ethan decided to participate. His idea was to develop a low-cost, high-efficiency propulsion system for small satellites, a concept he had been toying with for years. For months, Ethan poured his heart and soul into the project. He transformed his small garage into a makeshift lab, using everyday materials to build his prototype. The process was filled with setbacks, design flaws, failed tests, and a growing sense of frustration. But each failure taught him something new, pushing him to refine his approach. As the submission deadline approached, Ethan realized he needed a professional touch to present his work effectively. He reached out to a former professor, Dr. Ramirez, who had always believed in Ethan's potential. Dr. Ramirez agreed to mentor him, helping him polish his presentation and validate the science behind his project. Their late-night brainstorming sessions reignited Ethan's confidence. On the day of the competition, Ethan traveled to the city for the first time in years, carrying his prototype and presentation materials. Standing among contestants from prestigious institutions and advanced labs, he felt a wave of self-doubt. But as he stepped onto the stage, he reminded himself of his preparation. Ethan's presentation was a blend of passion and innovation. He demonstrated his propulsion system with such clarity and enthusiasm that it captivated the judges and audience. His prototype worked flawlessly, earning him a standing ovation. To his astonishment, Ethan won the competition. Winning the competition marked the beginning of a new chapter in Ethan's life. He enrolled in a renowned university, where he continued to develop his propulsion system. His work gained recognition in scientific journals, and he was invited to collaborate with a major space agency on a satellite launch. Amora had always been drawn to the vibrant sounds of the violin. As a child, she would sit by her grandmother's old record player, listening to classical pieces that seemed to transport her to another world. Her dream was simple yet profound: to become a world-renowned violinist. Growing up in a modest household, Amora couldn't afford formal lessons. Her family barely made ends meet, but her grandmother, who shared her love for music, gifted her an old, slightly damaged violin. It became her most treasured possession. Amora taught herself to play by mimicking songs she heard on the radio and watching free tutorials online. Her passion was evident, but her technique was raw and unrefined. In high school, a local music competition was announced, offering a scholarship. Amora saw this as her golden ticket. For weeks, she practiced tirelessly, often staying up late into the night perfecting her performance. However, without proper guidance, her efforts lacked direction. On the day of the competition, she poured her heart into her performance. Her mistakes overshadowed her passion. She didn't make it past the first round. Devastated, Amora considered giving up on her dream. She felt the weight of her limitations and the sting of rejection. But her grandmother encouraged her to keep going. Motivated by her grandmother's words, Amora began playing in the town square on weekends. She performed for passers-by, using her music to convey her emotions and connect with others. Her raw talent and heartfelt performances began to draw attention. One day, a retired violinist named Mr. Laurent heard her playing and was captivated by the emotion in her music. He approached her, offering to mentor her free of charge. Under Mr. Laurent's guidance, Amora's playing transformed. She learned proper technique, refined her style, and expanded her repertoire. He introduced her to pieces she had never imagined playing, pushing her beyond her comfort zone. With his encouragement, she decided to audition for a national music competition. The audition was nerve-wracking. Amora found herself surrounded by highly trained musicians, many of whom had years of formal education. Doubts crept into her mind, but she reminded herself of her journey and the people who believed in her. When it was her turn, she stepped onto the stage with her grandmother's violin, closed her eyes, and let the music flow. Her performance was unlike anything the judges had heard. While it wasn't flawless, it was deeply emotional and authentic. She played as if she were telling a story, weaving her struggles, her dreams, and her triumphs into every note. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment before erupting into applause. Amora didn't win first place, but she earned a special recognition award. One of the judges, a renowned conductor, offered her a scholarship to study at a prestigious music academy. This was the break she had been waiting for. At the academy, Amora thrived, balancing her technical improvement with the emotional depth of her playing. Years later, Amora performed her first solo concert at a world-famous venue. She played her grandmother's favorite piece, dedicating the performance to the woman who had inspired her. As the final note echoed through the hall, she looked out at the standing ovation. Every challenge, every moment of doubt,
had led her to this point. Amara's story became an inspiration for aspiring musicians around the world. She often said, "Music isn't just about hitting the right notes. It's about sharing your soul. And when you play from the heart, the world will listen."
Jacob was an ordinary man living an ordinary life. At 32, he had a steady office job, a small apartment in the city, and a routine that rarely changed. Every morning, he commuted to work, spent hours at his desk crunching numbers, and returned home to eat dinner while scrolling through his phone. Though his life was stable, Jacob often felt as though something was missing, a spark, a sense of purpose. But he ignored these feelings, assuming this was just how life was meant to be. One Friday morning, as he prepared to leave for work, Jacob's phone buzzed with an unexpected call. It was his childhood friend, Daniel, whom he hadn't spoken to in years. Daniel sounded different. His voice carried an urgency that immediately caught Jacob's attention. "Jacob," he said, "I need you to come to the hospital. It's about Emily." Emily was Daniel's younger sister and Jacob's best friend growing up. The three of them had been inseparable during their childhood, spending summers exploring the woods behind their neighborhood and dreaming about the future. But as they grew older, life pulled them in different directions. Jacob hadn't seen Emily in over a decade. At the hospital, Jacob learned that Emily had been in a car accident. She was stable, but seriously injured. When he walked into her room, the sight of her lying there, pale and fragile, struck him deeply. Emily opened her eyes and smiled weakly. "Hey, stranger," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Long time no see." Over the next few weeks, Jacob visited Emily regularly. Despite her condition, she remained optimistic, cracking jokes and talking about her recovery plans. She shared stories about her work as a wildlife photographer, traveling to remote corners of the world to capture the beauty of nature. Her passion and zest for life were infectious, and Jacob couldn't help but feel inspired. One evening, Emily asked Jacob a simple yet profound question. "What makes you happy, Jacob? Truly happy?" He hesitated, unable to answer. Emily smiled knowingly. "You've always had a good heart, but you've been stuck in a life that doesn't let it shine. Maybe it's time to change that." Her words stayed with him. Over the following days, Jacob began to reflect on his life. He realized how disconnected he had become from the things that once brought him joy. His love for painting, his curiosity about the world, and his desire to make a difference. Emily's accident had been a wake-up call. Jacob decided to take a leap of faith. He quit his job and began volunteering at a local community center, teaching art classes to underprivileged kids. At first, the decision felt risky and uncertain, but as he immersed himself in the work, he discovered a fulfillment he had never felt before. Seeing the kids light up as they painted and expressed themselves brought him a deep sense of joy. Meanwhile, Emily's recovery progressed, and she encouraged Jacob to explore his newfound passion further. She even invited him to join her on a photography expedition once she was well enough to travel again. Jacob hesitated, doubting his ability to step into such an unfamiliar world. But Emily reminded him, the best moments in life come when you leave your comfort zone. Months later, Emily was well enough to travel, and Jacob found himself in a dense rainforest, carrying a camera for the first time. The experience was transformative. Surrounded by the vibrant colors and sounds of nature, Jacob felt more alive than ever. He realized that the world was filled with beauty and wonder, waiting to be discovered. That trip marked the beginning of a new chapter in Jacob's life. He combined his love for art and storytelling by documenting his travels and sharing them with others. His work gained attention, and he eventually turned his passion into a career, inspiring people to reconnect with their own dreams. Looking back, Jacob often thought about that day at the hospital, the day everything changed. Emily's accident had been a turning point, not just for her, but for him as well. She had reminded him of the importance of living a life that felt meaningful.
Sophia had always loved storytelling. From a young age, she would gather her family around to share her imaginative tales, filled with fantastical worlds and vibrant characters. Her dream was to become a best-selling author, someone whose words could touch lives and inspire hearts. But dreams, as Sophia would discover, often come with a steep price. After graduating from college, Sophia poured herself into her writing. She stayed up late, typing away on her old laptop, crafting her first novel. It was a deeply personal story about hope and resilience, inspired by her own struggles. She sent the manuscript to dozens of publishers, her heart racing with every submission. But the rejections came swiftly and repeatedly. Each letter felt like a blow, a confirmation of her worst fears, that her work wasn't good enough. Days turned into weeks, and Sophia found herself sinking into self-doubt. She began questioning her abilities, wondering if she was chasing an impossible dream. One day, while organizing her desk, she came across a short story she had written as a child. The story was simple and rough, but it was filled with pure, unfiltered passion. Seeing it reignited a spark in her. Determined to improve, Sophia joined a local writers group. There, she met Emma, a seasoned author who had faced her own share of rejections. Emma became Sophia's mentor, guiding her through the process of refining her writing and understanding the publishing world. Emma's encouragement helped Sophia realize that rejection was not the end, but a stepping stone toward growth. Sophia rewrote her novel from scratch, incorporating feedback from her mentor and peers. It was grueling work, but she found joy in the process. Her writing became sharper and more impactful. With Emma's guidance, she self-published her novel online, hoping to reach even a small audience. To Sophia's surprise, the novel began to gain traction. Readers resonated with her heartfelt storytelling, leaving glowing reviews, and sharing the book on social media. Within months, her novel became a viral sensation, catching the attention of a major publisher. They offered her a book deal, something she had dreamed of for years. Sophia's journey didn't stop there. Her book climbed bestseller lists, and she was invited to speak at literary events. She often spoke about the importance of embracing failure and using it as fuel to keep going. Her second novel was even more ambitious, exploring themes of identity and belonging. This time, Sophia approached her writing with confidence and a deeper understanding of her craft. The book was met with critical acclaim, cementing her place as a rising star in the literary world. Looking back, Sophia realized that every rejection, every moment of doubt, had been a vital part of her journey. Without them, she wouldn't have grown into the writer she had become. Her story became a testament to the power of resilience and the belief that dreams, no matter how distant, are always worth pursuing.
Alex was a young man with a passion for changing the world. From a young age, he spent countless hours sketching designs for innovative ideas about renewable energy. He grew up dreaming of finding a solution to provide sustainable power to small, underprivileged communities struggling with constant electricity shortages. As he got older, Alex began working on his first project, a device that combined solar and wind energy to generate power. He believed deeply in his idea, but he lacked the resources to perfect it. He tried presenting his project to several investors, only to face rejection time after time. Some didn't find his idea convincing, while others saw him as just an inexperienced dreamer. At a crucial presentation, the device malfunctioned in front of everyone, leaving Alex embarrassed and questioning whether his dream was worth pursuing. Sitting alone in his workshop, surrounded by broken tools and abandoned designs, Alex felt defeated. He began to wonder if he should give up. That's when he received a call from his best friend, Sam, who had always been his biggest supporter. Sam spoke to him candidly, reminding Alex of his abilities and the reasons he started this dream in the first place. That conversation became a turning point for Alex. While searching for solutions to his problems, Alex met Mr. Carter, a retired engineer. Carter saw in Alex a passion that reminded him of his younger self. He agreed to help and shared his years of experience. Together, they spent long days rebuilding the device from scratch. Alex learned that failure wasn't the end, but a step on the path to success. With every small adjustment, the device grew more efficient and reliable. After multiple attempts, Alex finally succeeded in powering a single house in a small community. That moment was filled with emotion as he watched the lights illuminate the faces of the residents. The community rallied around him, providing support and resources to continue his work. Alex felt a renewed confidence driving him forward. News of Alex's project reached the National Innovation Committee, and he was invited to participate in a major expo to showcase his invention. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, but a major setback occurred when the device broke down the day before the event. Alex had to decide between presenting an incomplete device or risking a last-minute repair. Trusting in himself and his team, he chose to fix the device, working tirelessly through the night. On the day of the expo, Alex stood before a large audience and demonstrated his device, which performed flawlessly, lighting up a model village. The crowd erupted in applause, and Alex received an offer from a major investor to expand his project globally. Grateful for the challenges he had faced, Alex realized that those struggles made his victory even sweeter. After his success, Alex decided to share his story with others. He began hosting workshops and giving inspiring talks about perseverance and believing in oneself. He became a source of motivation for many who were on the brink of giving up. Alex learned that success isn't about avoiding failure, but about how you rise after every fall.
The little red hen lives on a farm and works hard all day, pecking the ground, looking for worms, sitting in a bush, and sometimes laying an egg. She has 3 friends, a cat, a dog, and a horse who don't work hard at all, preferring to sleep or watch TV. One day, the little red hen discovers a raspberry bush and excitedly thinks about making a raspberry cake. She runs to tell her friends, who all express interest in the cake but refuse to help pick the raspberries, citing being busy, tired, or watching TV. Determined, the little red hen picks the raspberries by herself. She then asks her friends for help gathering flour, sugar, milk, and butter. But again, they all refuse, so she retrieves the ingredients alone and mixes them into a batter. The little red hen asks for help mixing the cake batter, but her friends refuse once more. Undeterred, she mixes the batter, stirs in the raspberries, pours it into a cake tin, and bakes it in the oven, all by herself. As the cake bakes, a delicious smell fills the kitchen, attracting the dog, cat, and horse. They rush to the kitchen, eager to eat the cake. The little red hen takes the cake from the oven, sprinkles it with sugar, and asks who wants to help eat it. When her friends eagerly volunteer to eat the cake, the little red hen refuses, reminding them that they didn't help make it. She runs away with the cake and enjoys every last crumb by herself, teaching her friends a lesson about hard work and sharing.